It's been decades since the Dallas Cowboys won the Super Bowl.
Decades.
Before the Dallas Mavericks, they won their title in 2011. Now, with the way that both these teams are trending currently, which Cowboys or the Mavs do you think will win a title next?
If the Mavericks hadn't lost the first game in round 2 against Phoenix in the fashion that they did, you might argue Mavericks, especially because even when we get to game 4, game 7, whatever it is, Luka Doncic on my team gives me a chance.
Right.
But, and I know Cowboy fans in many cases are vocal and skeptical on this subject, but the Cowboys are still, as we sit here, the best team in the NFC East. That means they have a great chance to be in the tournament. And I say that with no disrespect to the Philadelphia Eagles. There's a lot of national media people that are saying the Eagles are coming up and over the Cowboys.
Yeah.
They have clearly closed the gap in terms of roster quality. Washington has closed the gap in terms of roster quality. But this team, even though it's a little different than it was 3 months ago, this team shellacked those two teams. Both times they played them last time around. So I think it's a little disrespectful, frankly, to dismiss the Dallas Cowboys as a contender. I believe they are a contender.
Oh, wow. Well, the NFL draft is in the rearview mirror, and you mentioned it there. The Philadelphia Eagles are kind of a trendy pick to be favorites in the NFC East division. One of the big storylines coming out of the 2022 NFL draft was how much better the NFC East division seemingly got. Do you think that that's rightfully said, that the Eagles might be the next division champion?
Well, look at the whole group. Let's start at the bottom with the Giants. The Giants drafted 2 guys that might have been the best defensive lineman and the best offensive lineman in the whole draft. In fact, when we get a good close peek at Jerry Jones's Dallas Cowboy draft board, and now we know it,
Zoom in.
and you can read more about it at cowboyssi.com, you can see the first 2 names are Thibodeau, defensive end, as the best player in the draft, the Cowboys thought, and Neal, the offensive tackle. Well, the Giants got both of them.
Right.
So I'll tell you who thinks the Giants had a good draft is the Cowboys. In the case of Washington, Carson Wentz is a very popular punching bag, and I get it, and I understand why, and I've done some punching myself. But he remains somewhere in there a blue chip talent at quarterback. That means that they upgraded in Washington. And then you're right about Philadelphia. They went and got the preeminent run stopper in all of college football in Jordan Davis from Alabama, and then manipulated the draft to go get a 24-year-old franchise wide receiver in A.J. Brown. So those 2 impactful moves, those 2 big-time moves, frankly, the Cowboys can't argue that they matched that.
Right.
The Cowboys did not acquire 2 guys like that, not at this early stage anyway.
The Dallas Cowboys did add 9 players in the NFL draft, but they added 20 undrafted free agents. Now, I don't have to tell you about Tony Romo and others who made huge impacts for the Cowboys as undrafted rookies. Do you see somebody with this undrafted group becoming a instant impact? I know they drafted a kicker.
Was this your attempt? Were you trying to stump me on this one? Were you trying to challenge me? Marquise Bell, Florida A&M, big safety. You can picture him playing special teams in the NFL right now.
Okay.
So he's on the list. The Boston College center, Alec Lindstrom, whose uncle played in the NFL and whose brother plays offensive line for the Falcons, Chris. I had a scout tell me that's a real live NFL center. Now, that's not a prediction that he's going to start as a rookie. I'll say this. I bet you he has a job with the Dallas Cowboys. Practice squad, something.
He'll make an impact in a way.
Aaron Hansbard, the linebacker from Texas A&M. Not a gigantic guy, but plays big. And probably has some things to learn to get where he wants to go. And then the 4th guy I would name would be your Texas Tech kicker. Now, people are unaware, I think, largely that Chris Negar is here. Chris Negar was all-state kicker at Arlington, went to UT as their kicker, got kind of beat out by Dicker, the kicker, so then went to SMU and was dynamic there, has been in the NFL bouncing around for 1 year. So Negar at SMU/Longhorns versus Texas Tech, you could get a winning kicker out of there. And so there's some unheralded guys that in a salary cap era, and if Will McClay and staff do their jobs right, you're going to have some guys that nobody ever heard of all of a sudden be Dallas Cowboys with stars on the side of their helmets.
I love it. When you look at the 9 players that the Dallas Cowboys did draft in the 2022 NFL draft, there's a theme. Big. These guys are large.
Yeah.
What does that tell you about this draft class and about this team moving forward?
I think it tells you one thing about moving backwards. They look back, and Mike McCarthy was pivotal here. They look back at the loss in the 49ers playoff game, and they recognized they got out physicaled. I still to this day don't think the 49ers are a more talented team than Dallas was on that day. But their wide receiver played running back and was pushing people around. That set a tone. That's Deebo Samuel, of course.
Right.
And Mike McCarthy, the way we understand it, marched around the war room, the draft room, in the days leading up to the draft and on draft weekend too, saying, don't forget, we need, David Hellman at DallasCowboys.com used the phrase big boys. We need to not get out big boyed. We need to be able to push back. And then you go through this litany of guys. The offensive tackle in the first round, Tyler Smith, is a 6'5", 320-pound mauler.
Right.
The defensive end is a guy who got 12 and a half sacks at Ole Miss, set their record. They've got a 6'8" offensive tackle. They got a 6'5", 350-pound defensive tackle.
Yeah.
So on and on and on. You're right. I don't know if they'll beat the 49ers next time they'll play them, but they have a chance to win in a street fight, that's for sure.
Yeah, all of a sudden the roster got a little bit heavier.
Yeah.
When you look at the roster now currently, is there anything that makes you kind of scratch your head or makes you kind of concerned?
I do think they, while claiming that they weren't drafting for need and weren't going to draft for need, it's an amazing coincidence that the first 4 picks all directly fill a need. Obviously, a lot of focus when we get to OTAs here in this facility, and then when we go to Oxnard, and we're all going, come on with us, to Oxnard for training camp. Is Tyler Smith not only ready to be an NFL tackle, which is what he naturally is, but in addition to that, be a starting NFL left guard? Because while his future is probably a tackle, he's built that way. That's not what they need today. He's not going to beat out Tyron Smith, and he's not going to beat out Terrence Steele. But they've got a gaping hole at left guard, and they know it. He says, I can do it. He says, I've worked on it, I've thought about it, I've practiced it, I can play any position. Left guard would be a great place for him to start. He's also been very clever and eloquent in his dealings with the media. The first thing he said when he walked in this building, he walked up to that in the atrium, and you know where the 5 replica trophies are there.
Right.
And there's a little tiny sign that says, please do not touch. And he was going to do something. He said, you got me. I won't touch a Super Bowl trophy until I get one myself. So he has pushed a lot of very and witty, and he's pushed a lot of the right buttons in that regard. Now he needs to make a push to win the left guard job.
Well, as you said it, we're here at the Star Dallas Cowboys headquarters, and nobody's here more than you are. I think you might sleep here sometimes. What kind of whispers are you hearing about the team?
The revelation of the draft board by Jerry Jones.
Yeah.
Was it
interesting?
It was definitely interesting. Was it unique? No, because this is about the 3rd time he's done something like that, where he'll just come out and tell you. And we've talked about this before, but he challenged me last year on the Michael Parsons thing. He said, Mr. Mag, I'll bet you $1,000 that we had him right. And I was too foolish to take him on the bet. I was a fool, because would he have really made him?
Did you actually pay up $1,000?
No, I should have taken him up on it. I was thinking I don't have $1,000 in my pocket. What am I doing? Get your ass in. So, Jerry being honest about the draft is nothing new. There's been a couple years where he's done interviews with the draft board right behind him. And you can focus in and see, well, that's what people have done here. And what they've realized is, what we've all realized is, when they said that Tyler Smith is the number 14 guy on our board, it was true. When they said we had 14 guys or 16 on the board, 14 first-round grades, true. And now we've got almost the entire complete list, 34 of the 39 guys, and we can see who's in there. The Cowboys might be wrong. They might be idiots, but they're not liars. And I do think that there's a method to Jerry Jones's madness. What does it hurt if you tell people your draft board after the draft?
Yeah.
If you're really confident that you were right. Yeah, there is transparency. I kind of wish I had more of it. The only reason that most teams wouldn't do it, and the reason that Will McClay, the personnel boss, kind of reeled back when it happened, is because now for the rest of eternity, we're going to be able to compare. That's the downside. But the upside is the Cowboys think they're right.
Yeah.